Good morning, Professor Craig. My name is Juliana Monroy, and I will be speaking about the social issues reflected in the Harlem Dancer by Claude Mckay. The Harlem Dancer is a poem that reflects the thoughts and situations that influenced the poet Claude Mckay to write it. The poem was written in 1917, 5 years after the author had arrived in America from his native Jamaica, only to be greatly disappointed to encounter the harsh reality of racism and the unimaginable Negro suffering that was going on in the American South. He had never experienced firsthand American racial prejudice and seemed to have been totally unprepared for this. But rather than returning to the less demanding life of Jamaica, he felt a compulsion to remain and join the struggle, for he was already bound to the American blacks in their bondage. He actually stayed in New York City and started working in everything that became available to him. He worked as a janitor and also at a Harlem women's nightclub. Shortly to this, in the early 1920s, the Harlem community started going through a period called the Harlem Renaissance, or the New Negro Movement. The movement was defined as an outburst of creativity among African Americans that occurred in all fields of art, but especially in poetry. Characterizing the Harlem Renaissance was an over racial pride that came to be represented in the idea of the new Negro, who through intellect and the production of literature, art, and music could challenge the pervading racism and stereotypes to promote their racial and social integration, and in this way help uplift their race. Claude Mckay was credited by many with having kick-started this movement. Now, stereotyping is one of the big issues that we can see reflected in the Harlem Dancer. The poet's attempt to show the difference between how the audience perceives this black woman and who she truly is represents Mckay's attempt to reveal and then shatter a stereotype. The audience views her as a beautiful and sexualized woman. They want to devour her and fails to see her true identity. They misread her. She seems to represent the historical stereotype of the hypersexualized black woman, and an image that arose during slavery with the sexual exploitation of black women by slave masters. The audience in this poem is like these historical slave masters, reading sexuality and happiness in her dancing and in her dancing and in her body, and failing to see who she really is, and that she was not even enjoying what she had to do at the time in order to survive. Racism was another issue glanced in this poem. Mckay talks about her voice sounding like blended flutes played by black men. We do not assume that the players are black until he specifically mentions it. This could be seen as a deliberate attempt of the author to emphasize his race and how they also were multifaceted, talented, and worthy of being documented and even celebrated in the arts. Other than that, the poem was used by Claude Mckay as a way of expressing the emotions that he had to deal with at the time. All the struggle that he had gone through during those years, the feeling of being out of place since he was out of Jamaica, the state of shock and disappointment for encountering all the suffering African American here in the U.S. All of these type of writing helped urbanize the culture, the African American cultures, and also encouraged blacks to celebrate their heritage. Thank you.